Destiny is boring. And that's not new. This isn't your typical Destiny is dying type video. As amazing as Destiny is in so many different ways, to me there have always been a few ways in which the game is just boring. But luckily it doesn't have to be. I hop on Destiny 2 every year for the new expansion, hoping that this will be the year that it finally hooks me in for the long haul. Because on paper, the game is a perfect combination of all the things I love. Satisfying shooting mechanics, deep build crafting, insanely awesome art direction, and an ever-expanding science fantasy story. And I always enjoy playing through the new campaign after that expansion comes out. And also, I think the Crucible is criminally underrated. But after a few weeks, no matter how hard I try, I can't seem to find a good reason to stick around. And that's because Destiny, as an ongoing live service game, expects you to replay so much of the same linear content over and over again. Yes, there are some exceptions, but most updates revolve around you replaying some type of mission that you've already played before. And call me picky all you want, but I think this is devastatingly boring. Despite having some of the funnest FPS gameplay I've ever experienced, I don't like replaying these linear story missions within Destiny. The Strike playlist, for example. This will matchmake you with 2 other players, and you'll get thrown into a random strike, which is kind of like a campaign mission. To me, this is fun the first time you run the strike, maybe even a few times after that, because Bungie is actually pretty good at designing these missions. But at the end of the day, they're just static, linear story missions that play out the same way every time. This type of thing just can't be played over and over again indefinitely, no matter how amazing the game mechanics are. And yet, this is the foundation of Destiny 2. Dungeons and raids are much more engaging and replayable than strikes, but still have the same basic issue. They're both static and linear. Not to mention that these require a fire team and more time to complete, so it's likely not something that you just casually boot up. To be clear about the type of thing I'm referring to here, Destiny has lots of different names for this type of content, like strikes, campaign missions, offensive, dungeons, raids, and even lost sectors. Which don't even get me started because I could go on an entire rant about how boring lost sectors are. These activities are the foundation of Destiny, and they're the same every time you play them. Yes, you can change up your build to make it feel a little different, but that'll only get you so far. This is why I actually spend a lot of my time on Destiny in the Crucible, which is PvP for anyone who doesn't know. There, I can enjoy all the awesome mechanics of the game, but also each match can feel different. There's a really wide range of variability when it comes to playing against other humans. Of course, Bungie doesn't really care about the Crucible anymore, so that comes with its own set of problems, but I still prefer it to running the same lost sector I've done 100 times before. So Destiny PvE can be boring after running the same missions over and over again. Big whoop. Why am I making a video about it, you're asking? Well, we've seen Destiny 2 struggle recently, with player counts dropping and massive layoffs over at Bungie. I won't pretend to understand everything that's going on behind the scenes at Bungie, but things like layoffs generally suggest that the game is not doing as well as they want it to. Or in other words, the amount of money that they're putting into Destiny 2 development is not justified by the amount of money players are actually spending on it. And that is the answer as to why I wanted to make this video right now. Like I mentioned in the intro, I've felt this way for a while, but because the game seemed like it was doing so well for so long, I thought I was the only one. But now the cracks are starting to show. The type of content that Bungie has mainly focused on for Destiny 2, while awesome, takes a lot of development resources and is not replayable in the long term. Compare a new season of Destiny to a new season of another successful live service, say Fortnite. I know you probably just rolled your eyes, but hear me out. When Epic Games takes the time and resources to develop a new map for Fortnite Battle Royale, they're getting a lot of bang for their buck, because Battle Royale on that map will be replayable for a long time. But when Bungie takes the time to develop a seasonal questline, this is more of a one and done situation. There might be bits and pieces that are replayable, but it's not getting the same amount of mileage as a Battle Royale map. And also, I'm not a game developer, but I'm guessing it might even cost more to develop too, since you're writing stories stories, creating environments, designing encounters, etc. Now, to be clear, I'm not suggesting that Bungie stop doing seasonal quest lines or raids or dungeons or any of that, because those are truly amazing experiences, and they're part of what make Destiny so unique. But I don't think those can serve as a healthy core to the game's live service model, because the core of a game that's meant to be played and developed for years on end needs to be more sustainable. It needs to be something that's both cheaper to develop and will keep players engaged for longer. And that's why I think it's time for Destiny to go roguelite. Roguelite. If you don't know, roguelite is a type of game that's defined by its use of procedural generation, or randomization, more simply put. The name comes from a 1980 dungeon crawler called Rogue. When other games took on that same style of gameplay, gamers named the genre roguelike, with a K. A roguelike has procedurally generated levels and permadeath, meaning that each run has a randomly generated environment, and once you die, it's over. You have to start again from scratch. But the streamlined power progression is part of what makes this work. Whereas a normal RPG would have you grinding hundreds of hours to raise your power level, this happens much faster in a roguelike. So the results are these fast-paced, randomized runs where you're always getting stronger and the stakes are always high. Pretty cool, right? And so along came roguelites with a T, which only have some roguelike elements. I wanted to go over that distinction because before making this video, I always wondered what the difference was, if there even was one, so now we both know. And at this point, you can probably tell where I'm going with this. Roguelites are designed from the very core to be as replayable as possible. But how can we apply this rogue philosophy to Destiny? To answer that, I want to take a look at a game that I've never heard anyone call a roguelite before, but to me definitely feels like one. And it also happens to be one of my favorite games of all time, Call of Duty Zombies. Also, excuse me if I geek out a bit too much here about how much I loved the classic Call of Duty Zombies gameplay. I just can't help myself, but trust me, this is all going somewhere. So assuming you've never had the pleasure of playing one of the greatest side modes in any video game ever, here's how Call of Duty Zombies worked. You start off each match with just a wimpy little pistol, one of the worst weapons in the game, and you have zombies tearing down your defenses, trying to kill you. The game progresses in rounds, and with each passing round, the zombies will get faster, stronger, and more plentiful. There is no way to officially win a match of zombies. It will always continue on and on until you eventually get overwhelmed and die. But you get points for each zombie that you kill, and there are a lot of things that you can buy with those points to help you survive longer. For example, although you start off in a rather small area, you can buy open other parts of the map, which will give you more space and more tools to work with. There's also the iconic mystery box, which gives you a random weapon from the game. Could be a room-clearing weapon of mass destruction, or it could be another pistol, even worse than the one you started with. You'll never know until you take the gamble. There are perks to buy around the map that'll give you things like more health and faster reloads, and there's the pack-a-punch machine, which is expensive but can turn even the worst weapons into something powerful. Me and my friends played so much Call of Duty Zombies back in the day. We would play over and over again all night long, and we didn't complain about the fact that it didn't have frequent updates the way lots of games have nowadays, or even the way that Call of Duty multiplayer had back then. And that's because Zombies was extremely replayable. Because of the randomized elements of the game, each run had its own unique twist. The mystery box, for example, is key in any round of Zombies, since that's where you find most of the best guns. But its starting position is randomized, and depending on where it is, you would take a different initial path through the map. And then of course, once you got to the box, you never knew what it was actually going to give you. You'd end up using a different set of weapons every time you played. And I haven't even mentioned some of the other points of randomization, like power-ups that would randomly drop, giving you things like temporary insta-kill and double points. On top of all this, the power progression of each match was satisfying and addicting. Over the course of a 30-minute round of Zombies, you would go from barely being able to kill even just 2 or 3 zombies at a time to an absolute god. And even then, it always felt like there was a way to get even more powerful, so when you did die, you immediately wanted to start up another match to try again. This gameplay was simple, accessible, and to my point for this video, replayable. I'm not saying I want Call of Duty Zombies inside of Destiny. We all know that Destiny is a completely different beast, but I do want to see a new core game mode that has some of these roguelike elements. A game mode that would be Bungie's take take on a round-based horde mode. Now the good news is that Bungie has dabbled a little bit in this genre over the past few years, like deep dives from Season of the Deep, where you got to pick a new power-up for yourself in between each encounter, similar to perks from Call of Duty Zombies, or Savathûn Spire from Season of the Witch, which had randomized objectives and enemies as you got further up the spire, or the Coil from Season of the Wish, which is probably the best activity we've gotten in Destiny ever since I started playing it. The Coil has its own fully fledged currency system, defined rounds of encounters, and power-ups to buy in between. These activities are steps in the right direction, and they do show that Bungie wants to make something more replayable, but if they ever want to actually achieve that, they're gonna have to commit to the idea a lot more than this. What I'm proposing is a new core game mode, a new ritual playlist that sits right alongside Crucible and Vanguard. For the sake of this video, we'll call it Gauntlet. Like Call of Duty Zombies, Gauntlet wouldn't be getting a new map every single season. It wouldn't need one, because the game mode would allow a single map to be replayed over and over, just like how I used to play Der Riese over and over. Gauntlet is a roguelite horde mode. Your average match of Gauntlet lasts maybe 10 to 30 minutes, and it's all about getting more powerful while moving through the map, facing randomized waves of enemies and challenges, and holding out for as long as you can. This allows for easy ways to refresh and add to the experience without a new map at all. For example, new power-ups to obtain, new kinds of enemies to fight, and randomized events or challenges that could happen at any moment of the match. This gets really exciting when you think about all the different enemy types and bosses that Bungie already has at their disposal to throw into a randomized game mode like this. Obviously, we don't want it to be just like Zombies, but I would like to see some similarities. I definitely want a currency system with lots of different types of power-ups to buy around the map, and I'd want some form of rounds or waves to quantify how far you've made it. And it's important also that it be endless. Maybe there's an extraction mechanic where you can decide to end the match on your own terms for some type of reward, or risk it and keep going for as long as you'd like. This is a mode that you never beat, and that's key for its replayability. Because once you beat something, like for example the way you can beat the Coil from Season of the Wish, you feel a lot less inclined to return to it, like you've already gotten everything out of it that you can. But that won't be a problem with Gauntlet. It always leaves you wanting more, and you always feel like you could do better if you just played one more round. How many times have you booted up Destiny 2 and just blankly stared at the director because you have no idea what to do? Gauntlet will be your new go-to when there's nothing else going on in the game. Of course, we still want to see raids and dungeons along with new campaigns from time to time, because we all love those. But that type of static and linear content can't be replayed indefinitely. Gauntlet will solve this problem. I could make an entire video going over more specifically how I'd like for Gauntlet to work, so definitely let me know if you'd want to watch that video. But for now, I just wanted to make this point. I love the gameplay of Destiny 2. I love the art direction. I love the weapon and class design. But I hate replaying these linear missions with a burning passion. I think this approach to live service content from Bungie is finally taking a toll on the players and on themselves. It's just not sustainable. It's like that old saying, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day, but teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. It's time for Bungie to stop busting their hump over delivering a single fish every season, and to start delivering a mode that creates fish indefinitely. Okay, my analogy kind of falls apart there, but you see what I'm saying. I genuinely think that this is the direction Destiny needs to move in. And if you agree, if you want to see that Gauntlet node in your director one day, then share this video or hit like or whatever. Just make it known somehow. If you want to scream at me for something I said in this video, or just want to stay up to date with the channel, I'll link my Threads account in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and stay gold.